Car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis, Wright, and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. Thanks so much for spending your Sunday evening with us. The topic of conversation tonight, just to be honest, is just a little creepy. We're going to be talking about termites and pests, but the information you're going to get is just going to be key and super timely. So tonight's a good night to join us. Just sit back and you're going to learn a lot, probably more than you'll ever need to know, we hope, at least when it comes to bugs, termites, and pest infestation. Leading our conversation tonight, you're not a termite expert.
No.
We got one of those here.
We do.
But you're certainly an expert on guiding us through this conversation. It's going to be an insightful evening.
Well, you know, David, termites cause billions of dollars of damage across the country every single year. And we are in the middle of termite season, which is February basically to May. And when we want to talk termites, we want to bring an expert on, somebody that does this for a living. And we've got Tom Campbell on. And Tom, we call him behind his back and in front of him, Termite Tom. But he is the guy in this area that is more knowledgeable about termite litigation, how to protect yourself, how to make sure that your home is protected from the time that you take your mortgage until the time that you sell that house, and what to do in circumstances where things go wrong. Mm-hmm. And we have props here, we have Tom here. This is going to be an insightful conversation. We've also got some video we'll see today.
Right.
So first of all, thank you so much for being on.
I'm happy to be here. This is the right time of the year to talk about this topic.
Just kind of jump in with this. How did you get started with this type of practice group? Because it's a specialized area not a lot of people practice in.
Well, believe it or not, in the early 1980s, when I was clerking during law school, the law firm I was working for had a claim where a woman claimed she was poisoned by termite chemicals. And I met the state regulators. They told me that in the mid-80s, the good chemical had been taken off the market. The replacement chemicals did not last as long and they were expensive. And he said, nobody's buying enough to treat houses correctly. There'll be an explosion of litigation in the late 1990s. And I sort of figured, well, I'll work for this big, nice corporate firm until the late 1990s, and then I'll go represent the homeowners. So I started studying it and collecting the information then to be able to know effectively how this industry operates.
All right, so let's talk kind of broad terms. In general, how does a termite process and kind of the termite bond work where people, you know, I know I pay a bill every quarter. How does that process work? Because I think there are some people out there that probably just don't understand in general how the process works.
Generally what happens when you buy a house, a used house, you'll get a termite inspection. And usually, or you should when you buy a house, ask to have a termite bond issued or transferred to you. And the basic theory is that if you put chemicals under, inside, and around a foundation, tests have shown that that will work 100% of the time to stop termites. So if you've had that treatment, your home shouldn't have termites. And you need to get that to prevent termite infestation and damage. They're social insects that live in the ground. Everybody assumes from that they act just like ants, but the primary difference is that termites are going to dehydrate and die, and so they do all their damage in hiding. And that's the important thing to remember. Have a termite bond, and if you get a termite infestation, you need to do an immediate independent investigation as to why.
Yeah, I had read in the pre-production material, and I know you and I have talked kind of before we started the show, this is almost 100% preventable if properly treated.
To get the chemicals registered with the EPA, they have to follow rigid guidelines for testing that show that it works 100% of the time for 5 years. And if you maintain that barrier, they know when these chemicals wear off, and you warn the customer not to dig it up if they've applied it, your house should never get termite infestation, and certainly not a severe one.
We have a question here, just a reminder. You see the information at the bottom of your screen. That's how you can call, text, and email, join the conversation. We'd love to have your questions in. There's also an attorney standing by right now, so if you call that number, opportunity to get some great free legal advice. So opportunity for you not to only watch us, but interact with us. And again, those attorneys are standing by. A question we've got here: my termite company denied paying for repair for my home. How do I know if I have a case?
you're never going to know without getting somebody else involved that knows how to provide the service. And you need to call a knowledgeable expert, which may be either another termite company, a lawyer who knows what they're doing, or there's a state regulatory agency, believe it or not, the Alabama Department of Agriculture, that regulates this industry, and they will come and do a free inspection of your home.
Okay.
And the most critical thing in that is to have them evaluate the adequacy of the initial treatment.
How long does a treatment take? Because I know, for example, every quarter I may see somebody at my house if I'm there at the time that they do the inspection. Is it a long process to do the inspection and to be thorough about it?
Well, homeowners will see people do two things at their house. Number one, the treatment, which should not be done during an annual inspection, and then an annual inspection. An annual inspection should last 45 minutes to an hour, and your inspector should be sweaty and filthy when he leaves your house. If he's not sweaty, filthy, and he hasn't been there 45 minutes to an hour, they didn't do a real termite inspection. They pretended to. And a termite treatment, if you've got a 2,000 square foot house with a basement, that may take anywhere to do a full termite treatment, anywhere from 25 to 50 or 60 man hours, and involve drilling thousands of holes and pumping hundreds of gallons of chemical.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you a little bit about that. The chemicals they're using, I noticed that we have, for example, at one of our homes, a Centricon system. And does the Centricon system itself, is that what that's doing? Is it creating a barrier?
No, the Centricon system is what they call a baiting system.
Okay.
And David said this is going to be a scary program. One of the scary things about any baiting system, not just that one, is they don't bait termites. Okay. We put, clover in fields to bait deer.
I learned tonight.
We're gonna have a
there's
little
nothing in those stations.
Wright House.
There's nothing in those stations that baits a termite. They literally have to find it by accident. They forage randomly. So, one of my experts, who's a semi-professional hockey goalie, says that's about like having a mouse as a hockey goalie. The chance they're going to hit those stations before they hit your house are astronomical. So I don't recommend.
Can I call
that people
timeout
get
right
those.
here?
Yeah.
Isn't that what I thought? That's the very reason for the Centricon system, and that they do bait termites.
Yeah.
What are they baiting?
They don't bait anything. That termites forage randomly, and they literally have to hit an 8-inch, 1-inch. It's 8 inches long, 1 inch around. They have to hit that every 10 feet by accident. And so I don't recommend the baiting systems at all. The theory sounds great. We don't have to apply chemical. Look, you don't need a barrier around your house. We're going to catch them out in the yard and kill the whole colony and create a termite-free zone. And it's just a difficult situation. Oftentimes what happened is once termites start eating it, they keep returning to the food source.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But the same thing applies to your house. If they're already eating your house, they're going to keep eating your house rather than foraging randomly and accidentally hitting one of these stations.
Yeah, I know we're about to go to commercial break. I want to talk more about that when we get back. In the circumstance that somebody has a Centricon system, I want to talk about whether or not, for example, they're still being chemically treated otherwise. We'll talk about that when we come back.
All right, we'll pick up right there as we head to break. A reminder, call, text, email, join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. That information there on the bottom of your screen. You can also find the firm of Hollis right there on Facebook. See updates on the attorneys oftentimes on there, as well as Twitter. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys.
Welcome back into the Attorneys. Everything you wanted to know about termites and then some. A show tonight that can literally save you thousands of dollars. Welcome back into the Attorneys as we continue our conversation here talking about termites and pest control and what you need to know. A reminder, would love to have you join the conversation. You could call, text, email that information at the bottom of the screen, and an attorney is standing by right now. So right now, the opportunity for you to get some great free legal advice. Josh?
Thanks, David. When we went to break, we were talking about the Centricom system, which is external to your home versus an actual chemical treated house. If you have the Centricom system, is it also chemically treated, or generally are those things in lieu of each other?
They're generally in lieu of each other. They don't do both. There are a couple of companies that sometimes will do both, but I would encourage people to get a liquid termite treatment of their house, and when you do that, get one that's called a comprehensive treatment. That's a magic word. You can get something in Alabama now called a defined treatment, but that's less than a comprehensive treatment. So you want a liquid treatment, and on the top of the contract there'll be a big box that's in bold, and you want that not to say a defined treatment.
So ultimately, an inspection should be from your foundation all the way up to your attic, the annual inspection.
Absolutely. And that's one thing, people say, well, what are they supposed to be doing at the inspection? You're not going to see termites in your house. The chances of that happening are astronomical. What they're looking for are little signs of dirt or mud where it's not supposed to be, on the outside of a piece of wood like we have here on the edge. And what that's a sign of is that they may be tunneling inside the wood, like in here. Because most of the time the termites, because if they get exposed to the air, they dehydrate and die. They travel inside the wood where you never see them. People think termites are going to be like ants, that if you've got an ant infestation, of course we know it. They think if you have a termite infestation, you won't. One of the things that I brought with us is a video clip of a home for a family that we represented out in Meadowbrook. There's a new kind of termite that's appearing in central Alabama in the last few years called a Formosan termite. And they're like the killer bees of termites. They're bigger, they're more aggressive. Their colonies have millions of members instead of hundreds of thousands. In front of us is a carton nest that we got out of a house in Fairhope, Alabama, that was 8 years old, and the termites did $250,000 in damage in 8 years. And these Formosan termites, as opposed to building a nest in the ground, they will build a nest inside the house and have queens and reproductives, and millions of them will start eating your house. And this home in Meadowbrook literally had to be torn down. They had no idea they had a termite infestation when it was discovered. We went and inspected it and knew almost immediately it needed to be torn down.
What's your recommendation for, if you see something in your house? I mean, you're looking for the stuff that we just talked about. What are some of the other things you want to look for, and what should you do immediately when you find that?
You're either going to be looking for dirt in places where it shouldn't be, or you, in rare instances, will see thousands or hundreds of termites swarming inside your house. And if either one of those things happen, you think you have a termite infestation, you run a vacuum cleaner through a baseboard. If the damaged wood has dirt inside it and they've eaten the spring growth rings of the wood, that's a termite infestation as opposed to rot. And what I advise people to do is do not call the termite company that you have a bond with, because almost all of those claims come about because they never did the treatment. So the important thing to do is to get an independent, unbiased person to look at your house before they go in there and do some drilling and other things to destroy the physical evidence.
Almost like an expert coming in early.
Absolutely.
In the case. Interesting.
Question we've got here. I bought my home 3 months ago. I was told that it was free of termite damage. My husband just found significant damage in the crawl space. Who all can be held responsible to fix the damage?
If you had a termite inspection before you bought the house, as people usually do, certainly your termite inspection company is the #1 target. In rare situations, a homeowner has done something where they have intentionally covered up termite damage, or even a real estate agent has. But we filed literally hundreds of termite cases and sued homeowners and real estate agents 2 or 3 times, because usually they're just as incompetent to identify signs of termites as the rest of us. So if I've got a termite company that I know is guilty and did something purposefully wrong, like not doing the termite treatment, I don't want to file a claim against them against a homeowner or a seller who usually has no liability, no fault, they didn't do anything wrong, and even if they did, usually it's negligent rather than intentionally wrongful.
So when you buy a house and you secure a mortgage on your home, you hear that you have a termite bond. What exactly does the bond mean? Does the bond mean if something goes wrong that you go to the bond to protect your home? I mean, how does that work?
Bonds basically have two basic terms in terms of the warranty. But when you buy a termite bond, you're actually getting two things. The first and most important thing is a service to prevent termites. The second one is a service warranty. What are we going to provide you if that doesn't work or we fail to provide the treatment? And there are two kinds. They can either provide that all we'll do is a treatment at no additional charge, which usually means they never did a treatment to begin with, so all they're doing is giving you the treatment you've already paid for. And the other thing is a repair guarantee. The important thing for homeowners to remember, though, is that even if their contract says it only covers retreatment, they may be able to recover not just repairs, but for the diminished value of their home, for emotional distress damages and punitive damages, because if they didn't treat the house and we establish that's fraud destroys all it touches, and we can avoid the terms of the contract altogether.
If you have a termite infestation that you don't find out about initially, and say it's 3-4 years old, is there a statute of limitation that applies to these cases?
There's a 2-year statute of limitations on fraud, professional negligence, things like that. That starts to run from the time that you discovered or should have discovered facts that showed you were cheated.
So you've got some extra time to the extent you didn't know.
You do.
Okay.
You do.
Great.
All right, we're going to step aside for our break. Interesting conversation tonight. Would love to have you join the conversation. A few minutes remaining. We're taking our final break of the night, so now's the time if you want to call, text, email. Also a reminder, attorneys standing by, not only termite-related questions, any question you have, now's the time to get that question answered. Pick up the phone and call us at the number you see there on the screen. Stay tuned. More of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Carter Clay with the law firm of Hollis, Wright. When someone whose unreasonable conduct causes an injury to someone else, the law says that person is negligent. So it seems the injured person should receive some type of damages, right? Not always so in Alabama. In tonight's Legal 411, we answer the question, what is contributory negligence and comparative fault? Alabama is one of only 4 states in the nation to withhold damages based on contributory negligence, meaning if you are at fault, even just a little, you cannot be allowed any damages in a case. For example, in a case where a defendant may be 99% at fault for hurting you, if you are found to be 1% at fault, Alabama law says you get nothing. 4 states, Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, and Alabama, plus the District of Columbia, are the only places in the country where a defendant can completely avoid paying if the injured person is even 1% at fault. This is very different from comparative fault, the measure used in 46 states. There are 2 versions of this system, but both essentially allow money damages based on the percentages. For example, if the injured person was 20% at fault for causing an accident, then the recovery for medical bills and wages is reduced by 20%. Numerous studies across the country show that people who live in comparative fault states believe this system of justice is more fair. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will always respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you.
Well, those termites are pesky critters for sure. Welcome back into the Attorneys. So appreciate you joining us tonight. A reminder, the bottom of the screen, how you can call, text, email, and don't forget, attorneys standing by. So pick up the phone, ask them any legal question you might have, something that you got weighing on you. The opportunity tonight to get that answered. Josh?
All right, so when we went out, we had been talking about whether or not you should bring in a third-party company, for example, to kind of investigate before you go back to your termite company if you think there's a problem. That leads me to believe there's some excuses that these termite companies will use. First things first, they are bonded and required to carry insurance.
Absolutely, and that's one thing consumers need to know. A lot of these companies are small mom and pops. The regulations make them have to have actual insurance coverage. So if you have a serious claim, there's going to be a big insurance company behind that is going to save this company from bankruptcy.
Okay. All right, so assuming there is an issue, what are some of the excuses, Tom, that you see in your practice related to, this isn't termites or it's not our fault, those types of things? What are you seeing?
Would it be appropriate to say anything they say that ends in so it's not our fault?
Yes, it would be very appropriate on this show.
But some of the things that are triggers that are inaccurate, probably the most often one is it's just a retreatment bond. We don't have to pay for repairs. If they never provided the service that they're warranting, you can get around that and get repairs and all tort damages. The other thing is the industry has said for decades that moisture causes termites. And they'll say, oh, these termites happen because you had a roof leak or a plumbing leak or you didn't caulk around your windows. Moisture does not cause termites. That is an incorrect statement. The other thing that they'll say is, oh, you have a contract, but it just covers regular subterranean termites, not these super termites called formosans. Okay. Well, the way you prevent both kinds of termites is the same. So the reason you have termites of any kind is because they didn't do the treatment usually, so that's not an excuse. And the other thing that they usually say as to why they're not responsible is that they haven't seen any living termites. Well, you can prove a case through circumstantial evidence. Yeah. You can prove somebody rang your doorbell because you saw them ring it, or because their footprints in the snow and you know they rang it. So if there was not termite damage there before and now there's termites, living, breathing termites ate that wood. So the fact that they're not now living in the wood, and sometimes that happens, often that happens, you still have a valid claim.
Tell us a little bit about the type of damages that you can recover in these cases. If somebody comes to you and says, Tom, I think I've got termite damage, you investigate, you say you do, what kind of damages can they request?
Well, that's the good news of this. It's a horrible situation, but the law provides a full recovery. And I like to say it falls into 4 categories. First is the injury to your home, your real property. And that's usually the diminished value, what you could get for your house if you sold it when it's damaged. And that's usually a huge number, far in excess of repairs. The second one is the injury to you, the emotional distress that comes from the fear of economic insecurity. And the jury or arbitrator can award that. The third one are incidental and consequential expenses. If you have to move out of your house for a period of time, those are recoverable. And the fourth category are punitive damages. If we can establish they never provided you the service, if they were reckless, or they did this as a business practice, there's a reasonable chance a jury or an arbitrator is going to award punitive damages.
A question we've got here, we've talked a lot about the termite companies. It can be quite expensive. A question here about can I treat my house myself?
Please do not. It is legal to do that, but the amount of time and the money you would have to invest in the equipment to do it correctly is not worth doing it. I encourage everybody to use a professional pest company.
How are these cases taken by expert lawyers like yourself? Are they on a contingency, similar, if you will, to a personal injury type case?
One of the reasons I quit doing corporate law was because I never wanted to fill out a timesheet again. So, we handle them on a contingent fee basis where if the client does not recover, then they don't owe the lawyer anything.
And the treatments themselves, we talked a little bit about this. How long do the treatments last? If somebody comes in, puts a chemical barrier down at the time you buy a house, how long does that chemical barrier last? And should they be coming every single year?
It varies greatly. There's a chemical that was used in the late 80s, early 90s by one of the large termite companies in the country. It lasted about 20-something days, and they've never reapplied those barriers, even though they know they didn't work. Chlordane that used to be available until the mid-80s would last 25, 30 years even. Most of the newer chemicals last anywhere from 5 to 12 years, but most of the time the companies do not reapply them after they know that barrier wore off.
Wow.
Our time is just about up. A fascinating conversation tonight, but just want to give both of you the opportunity. Just a final thought on what you would leave with our viewers tonight.
The thing that I would say is if you get a termite infestation in your home, please do not bury your head in the sand. Call the Department of Agriculture, call another pest control company, call a knowledgeable lawyer, have an investigation done. In cases, we often put on a crawl suit and crawl under our clients' houses and through their attics and inspect it ourselves. But getting independent judgment before your termite company can go in there and change the physical evidence is a critical thing for homeowners to do.
We bring the experts on the show. Tom's that guy. So, if somebody has a concern, an issue, even if it's with your termite company and they're just not doing their job, let us know. We can get you in touch with Tom, and Tom can help kind of lead, guide, and direct you through the process. We talked a little bit about the contingency fee arrangement where you don't have to put any upfront money, you don't have to fund the litigation. Tom's firm can do that. And so what I'd recommend is get a lawyer involved if you think you've got a problem, at least to evaluate the case. Call us, text us, email us, like we do every week, and we can get you in touch with the expert.
Yeah, not something that you want to dilly-dally on for sure if you see a problem.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
Great show.
Great stuff as always. Thanks to both of you for being with us tonight. Also, we appreciate you joining us tonight. As we wrap things up, call, text, email. That information still good. If you have something you're just thinking of, that's the way to get in touch with the firm of Hollis Wright. Also find them on Facebook if you just search the term Hollis Wright, and on Twitter they're at Hollis_Wright. So plenty of ways to get in touch with the firm of Hollis Wright. They look forward to speaking and dealing with you. Thanks so much for the time, and we'll see you next week right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.